It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Well, here we are, my friends. It is Tuesday. It is the 28th day of February, 2012, and we are going to be live here for the next 3 hours. Aaron Dykes will be sitting in with Cindy Sheehan, who's being persecuted for not paying money to the private Federal Reserve that occupies the United States. We're doing a test here, doing the show as we roll down the road in the bus while it's on. Because if we pull over and go to backup power for some reason, the power supplies beep the entire time. So if you hear a rumble there in the background, this is just the way it is. We'll probably get Aaron Dykes to come in here and do the whole show. Now, continuing, ladies and gentlemen, I had a particularly powerful and important broadcast lined up for you today of the greatest import. And there is a great culture of denial out there with people not aware of what's going on or just how serious this society's peril is. And I look at the stories in InfoWars. Now, I look at the guests we have on, and you guys are feeding me back my audio. All right. Well, we are beta testing the road trip situation here, and it's good. It's kind of like NASA, like testing rockets the first time they go to the moon. It's like, this is the first time we've done this. We're not even testing this rocket. We're going to put the guys in the capsule, blast off, have it blow up on the tarmac. That's how we do it. That's part of the secret gladiatorial enjoyment of the emperors back there at the office, torturing the daylights out of me daily. I don't know. Back to what I was saying, I'll compose myself and go to break here. And, Richard, I think we should just go with the generator off and let the incessant beeping happen in the background. Better than this here on air. And since I won't have time to discuss this during the break, there won't even be discussion during the break. To talk to the hand, I might as well just go ahead and have the discussion here on air. Because that way we know everybody actually gets to hear me talk. Again, because the TSA tries to grab my genitals, which I'm supposed to accept as a sacrament of being a land of the coward, home of the slave, I did the road trip, and it was a spectacular success in Dallas and in Orlando. Both were capacity crowds. Unfortunately, they turned people away at both events. And so next time we do venues, well, I guess we've got to get venues that hold more than 1,000 people. And I could have done more venues as well. We were just testing it, hitting 2 locations. And it's always buoying to get to meet like-minded people. Go ahead and kill it. Thanks. To meet like-minded people. And it's always great to be able to... That way we can just mess with it while I'm on air. Because we do this during the breaks, trying to fix it. It'll never happen. We'll just do this all out in the open on air. That way it'll actually get fixed. Anyways, back to what... We are live. I'm Alex Jones coming to you from the road, from the Panhandle of Florida. I will be back in Austin, Texas tomorrow night. And then we will be back in studio on Thursday, but I'm coming to you live from the road. I am coming to you from Florida, and I'm here on the InfoWars command vehicle, here on the bus, here on the RV, and we couldn't have done any of this trip without the amazing crew back in Austin, Texas, and Richard Reeves, who has absolutely busted his hind end. I want to thank the great folks in Dallas, who helped put on the event that was a overcapacity sellout crowd to see our new documentary and to hear me speak, as well as Jim Mars visiting with us. And I want to thank the folks out in Orlando as well at the Big A10, where we're #1 against Rush Limbaugh, for doing a great job. It was amazing seeing 1,000+ like-minded people out at that event, and to have countless current serving military personnel coming forward, talking about how the military is waking up en masse to what the New World Order is up to. So the awakening is certainly happening, and people kept using the term InfoWars saves lives. I mean, I wasn't there talking about vitamin and mineral replacement from natural sources like I do maybe once a month on the radio show or something. And in Dallas and in Orlando, I had person after person after person come up to me in person or up to the microphone during the question and answer and say, hey, I had lupus. And they said I was going to die, but a year ago I started taking vitamins and minerals and getting off aspartame and getting off GMO, and I'm better. I'm well. This was not like some holy roller convention where they ask people at the back of the entrance when they come in, hey, what's wrong with you? And then the preacher says, I know there's somebody out there in the crowd who just had their gallbladder removed. The woman's like, that's me. That's me. How did they know? Because you filled out a questionnaire entering the place. This was not a health conference. This was not about any of that. And it was just so many of the listeners were coming out saying, my wife was going to have surgery, but she heard your guest and got off aspartame. Or I was going blind and I got off aspartame and my vision has come back. Or I had cancer and juiced and lost 100 pounds and it's in total remission and gone. And they said the surgery wasn't even going to help me and radiation wouldn't save me. I mean, it was just blowing me away. And I was not even there. I was there to talk about the threat of the New World Order and a blueprint to defeat them. And it was, I'd say, 1/3 of the people coming up to me in person. That's all right. They'll go to. That's it. Well.
Campus. I've been asking students all day about the recently passed NDAA legislation. I was surprised to learn where the real denial is coming from.
Just one look at mainstream news will make any rational thinker conclude that Americans are in a hyper state of denial. Public opinion is in a stranglehold when it comes to real, open, honest debate. Whether it's the looming war in Iran based on fear-mongering and little fact, or the blind eye given to Ron Paul's agenda to get the country back to its constitutional values.
The new Suffolk University poll shows him with a commanding lead in New Hampshire at almost 30 points above his rivals. At the same time, Newt Gingrich and Jon Huntsman have faltered. Rick Santorum, who polls in single digits here, is looking to give Romney a run in the Granite State after his near victory in Iowa.
Are people aware that they could be kidnapped, detained without trial, and sent away to a torture facility for an untimely death simply based on the description of domestic terrorism? Denial comes in 3 forms according to Sigmund Freud. Simple denial. Deny the reality of the unpleasant fact altogether.
Do you feel like you get all the information you need from mainstream media?
No, I don't. I hardly watch the news anyway. And I'm in a lying and deception class right now, and we talked about media and news and how most of it is just, they take the smallest thing possible, it's not a big deal, and blow it out of proportion so you at least feel like something important's going on, when in fact there are other things that could be covered that, I mean, they don't want to cover or they don't.
Minimization. Admit the fact, but deny its seriousness.
Just wanted to ask you if you've heard about the NDAA legislation, the bill that allows the president to detain American citizens, whisk them away off to a torture facility, and never be seen again, that's been legalized as of this year. Are you aware of this?
I actually have heard of that. That's how they weren't going to close Guantanamo. That was the legislation that decided that, I believe.
If you're labeled a domestic terrorist, which could include the fact that you're missing fingers, that you bought beer at a store with cash, that you bought baby formula, do you take that seriously, or would you feel like yes, that may be happening, but it's probably for a good reason?
Because I don't know the details, like I want to say that it could possibly be for a good reason.
Projection. Admit both the fact and the seriousness, but deny responsibility.
Once the war against Saddam begins, we expect every American to support our military, and if they can't do that, to shut up.
Would you be more prone to say, yeah, that's happening, but there's nothing you can do about it?
I don't think that there's nothing that can be done. I think if enough people are informed about it, then the more people that are informed, the more people can, have an input and say, and one voice, adds to that change.
So, I mean, what's the entire point of this bill?
Domestic terrorism, they want to quiet their critics. We represent the alternative media. Mainstream media didn't even cover NDAA.
I have an idea that, the media is like, sponsored by certain, political parties and also certain people with power within this country, and they don't allow certain information to be, transmitted to the masses out of, it just wouldn't be right for the normal person's psyche.
American citizens are distracted by a number of worthless, time-consuming outlets. We are all addicted to our own self-importance. The only way to begin to treat addiction, whether it is alcohol or drugs, for example, is to break the cycle of denial. The mainstream media delivers a skewed reality, manipulating the American landscape with their theater of denial.
Isn't it amazing that we're denying our own slavery to a system fueled by that very denial? John Bound, InfoWars Nightly News.
Okay, folks, I was planning to do a whole talk today on air about denial and then get to John Bound's piece that was excellent on denial. Alex Jones coming to you via cell phone here on the InfoWars command bus while we're trying to get our system connected back up to the network. Aaron Dykes is waiting in the wings as well. Speaking of denial, I wanted to go over a few articles dealing with that. Look at this article. Utah lawmakers urge Congress to repeal indefinite detention law. Latest state to revolt against kidnapping provisions of NDAA. But I thought it was a conspiracy theory that the NDAA allowed the secret arrest of citizens and the secret disappearance to black torture sites. Of course, they first said it was a conspiracy theory when they wanted to get it passed. Once it did pass, Obama signed it, which he promised to not do, and they told the world that, yes, we will secretly arrest you and kill you. All three senators that wrote it and sponsored it, Lieberman, of course, McCain, and Graham, all bragged, yes, we won't just arrest you with no charges. We will kill you. Oh, Alex Jones, you're a fearmonger saying the government wants to use the military against us and will secretly arrest us and kill us. Ladies and gentlemen, they've got black sites all over the country. The Washington Post 3 weeks ago, had a big article about, some people in the town, there's controversy over the rendition camp where they take people and fly them out on the jets. There's a torture center, and there's an area, some hangars, and they hold them. And there's some activists who don't think it's very good. I mean, it's camps hidden in your face. And still I have people that come up to me at my events and say, look, I like your show, but are you serious? There's really camps. I don't know. They have the Emergency Centers Establishment Act. I don't know. They have Rex 84. I don't know. They have the Emergency Centers program set up under the John Warner Defense Authorization Act. They had Rex 84 congressional hearings on plans to arrest political dissidents, and the program already in place in Congress in 1986. I have all the video clips of that in my films, and people say, well, I want to see a copy of that. And I'm standing there in a hallway, and I go, but I just gave you the name of it. Go look it up. They're like, I don't know if I believe you. Because there's this childlike denial that the government can't and won't and wouldn't do something bad to them. Oh, the government's not shipping guns into Mexico. Okay, they are, but they're not going to do it to blame the Second Amendment. Yeah, they are. And the documents come out it is. So there's one big, giant, humongous piece of denial. Here's another one. Ethicists. That's the bioethicists. They don't have the Hippocratic Oath anymore. Ethicists argue killing newborn babies should be allowed, including healthy babies in America. Kill them. This is American Medical Association sponsored paper. Says kill babies. In fact, kill children up the age of 3 because they're dumb. We'll be right back. Stay with us. It's not eugenics, though. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Okay, here's the 4 or 5 big news stories I've got for you today. And then Cindy Sheehan is going to be joining us, who's being persecuted by the system. We're also going to have an activist out in San Diego where they're very close to getting the deadly so-called sodium fluoride that is a cover name for different types of toxic acids, lead, mercury, arsenic, and hundreds of other chemical weapons that are added to your water supply and that we all pay to be assaulted with as the different muscular and bone and joint degenerative diseases explode, as the neurological disorders explode, as the cancer explodes, as the diseases of the organs and diabetes explodes, as the blood diseases explode, as the curses of the eugenics, death cult, New World Order, straight out of Hades unfold. Now, here are just 4 or 5 of the stories I have here today. And then separately, I talked to Dave Mustaine this morning about his Santorum comment, and quite frankly, when it happened a few weeks ago, I had not been checking my phone a lot and just get so busy that I didn't know that Dave had been calling me and texting me. I've got to where I don't really read my email, answer my phone, or check anything anymore because I'm so busy just covering news all the time. And it turns out I could have had Dave on right after that happened instead of him basically putting a press release out to explain he didn't endorse Santorum. But that's a side issue. Dave is coming to town next week to Austin, and I'll just leave it at that. We'll have some surprises for you with Dave Mustaine. But I talked to him this morning. Luckily, I was going through old voicemails and text messages. I'm like, look at all these messages from Dave. I got to get a new cell phone. I've had this cell phone for 12 years. Well, this phone number. Because I know I had it when I snuck into Bohemian Grove, this current number, and it's out there everywhere. And people just pound it. Everyone's giving it out to everybody. And they just pound it and just rings and rings and text messages just boom, 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 come into it to where it's basically worthless. People always ask me, why do you not have email? Why can't I send you an email? And it's because I get 10,000 emails a day on the addresses I had. Or more, and I'm not complaining. It's just, you know, I'll hear from Discovery Channel or History Channel or a famous musician or whatever it is, or a Congress person with breaking news, and they're like, I've tried to get a hold of you for 3 months. So I've got to just get crew dedicated to just going over the email. I don't know how Drudge does it. You can send Drudge an email, you can put it in that little box, and a lot of times he'll post it in an hour. It was interesting news. I mean, he's actually, I guess, on it. And better at it than I am, because I am just overwhelmed. And that's what the globalists are trying to do to everyone with so much happening in your daily life, so much work, so many little odds and ends, so much red tape, so much information that you just tune it all out. You kind of roll over to it. And I far from do that. Instead of rolling over to the information and just giving up, I kind of dive into it, but then whatever I run into first, or whatever I think is the most threatening thing, I kind of tunnel vision into that. And then weeks go by, months go by, and it seems like hours now. And everybody's talking about this speeding up of time to where I look down and my children are growing, it looks like an inch a day or something, but really it's an inch every 6 months. They're growing up, and I'm busy here fighting the New World Order. But you know what? They have no future if we don't do this. So it's all worth it, and then some. And the same thing happens, this whole speeding up of time, this whole speeding up of life running to and fro, all these little whack-a-mole things we've got to do, that feeds in to the denial as well, because people are so busy, they just go, whatever, I can't deal with it. You know, more and more people say, look, you're not making this stuff up about tyranny. Okay, you're right. You were right about all this, which is no consolation because people don't take action. So what if I'm right? This isn't about being right before other people were. This isn't about going and studying history and globalist activities and being right. It's about being right and waking people up and stopping this But more and more people don't say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist making stuff up, or ha, 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 you're kooky. They go, yeah, you're right. Okay, you're right about it all. What are we going to do? There's nothing you can do. Well, there is stuff we can do when we do take action. And in my speech, Blueprint to Defeat the New World Order, I talked a lot about that. And that's what I'm doing now here today. But I'm going to reset, and I am going to come back and give you the big news. Ethicists argue killing newborn babies should be out. Also, they admit FEMA camps for homeless. And a lot more coming up today. And we're also going to get to states blocking NDAA. Stay with us. It is good to be here. We have fought hard. Our listeners and supporters have fought hard. Our crew has worked hard to be able to be reaching you on XM Channel 166, over 100 AM and FM affiliates, Global Shortwave, WWCR, and, of course, #1 on the audio streams online. And this is one of our, I guess, maiden voyages. It is the maiden voyage, officially going out on and speaking to large groups of fellow patriots, traveling around the country. And I appreciate all of you joining us today, those of you that are listening and those of you that are watching at prisonplanet.tv. Now, coming up, FEMA puts out contract for emergency camps to house displaced citizens. Solicitation calls for camps to be ready for occupation within 72 hours. There's new documents backing up some of the documents that came out 2 months ago. Paul Joseph Watson has that report at Infowars.com. Also, rights group petitions FAA on use of drones in U.S. skies. Says it will be used against the American people. It already is. And against political dissidents. Now, continuing here, I remember 14, 15 years ago reading one of the top professors, he's the head of the biology department at Princeton, Dr. Peter Singer, and countless others studying the globalists, studying the enemy and what they're into. And I would say the vast majority, more than 70% of the heads of psychology departments, anthropology, sociology, biology, and ethics sections in medical schools, if you just go randomly check the head of your medical school, the head of a biology department at a major university or medical school, and type in their name under population control, eugenics, things like that, you're going to find out that about 70+% on average are public eugenicists. You don't get the PhDs, you don't get into the club unless you are. That's how they run things. And I've quoted Peter Singer saying you should be able to kill your children up to age 3. And he says, and of course then after that they get that legal, I'm not joking, this is not satire, okay? This is not a joke. Okay, I'm being serious. You can look this up. Kind of like when I say schools all across the U.S. arrest 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds for running at recess. You type that into a search engine, you'll get AP, you'll get Reuters, with straight faces saying this is good. It's absurd, because in an authoritarian system, the truth and common sense is the enemy. As Rod Serling was saying, introducing the Twilight Zone back in the 60s. It's here. Truth and common sense, 2 + 2 = 4, is a menace, is a crime. Freedom is the ability to say 2 + 2 = 4. And I thought Eric Blair, writing under the pen name George Orwell, when he wrote that, was being sarcastic or absurdist when I was a teenager. And even when I was in college and reread it, I didn't fully grasp it. It's only until now I realized that whole book is what he witnessed working for the Imperial British in India, for the Stalin and the Soviets in Spain, and then for the BBC and the top globalists. And of course, Blair wrote right before he died of tuberculosis, they claim, about a year after it was published, that actually his whole book could only be published off of what he thought was really going to happen as fiction. Because he was not a fiction writer. He wrote a whole bunch of great books, very powerful, that were nonfiction about what he witnessed. He was more of a socialist, but he figured out it was control. But I'm digressing. Freedom is the ability to say 2 + 2 = 4. It is. Because I'm the extremist, because I happen to be informed, and I question known, confirmed liars that have been caught engaged in every form of evil you can imagine. I am the bad guy. I am the bad man. I am the person who's evil. I need to live in denial. I need to just be passive. I need to just go quietly into the night. I need to just shut up. Well, no, the answer is I'm normal. I'm got my head screwed on straight. I'm an aggressive, intelligent male who wants to protect my family, and to do that I've got to be informed, and I've got to mobilize people so we can collectively defeat these globalist collectivists through our individual actions, but through a collective love of liberty and freedom and common sense. The globalists and authoritarians wage war on common sense, on due process, and on reality. They don't arrest the father of a 4-year-old in Head Start programs because she draws a gun, because they're crazy or fearful or dumb. They're exercising power as the thought police. They don't taser an old woman until she's brain dead because she didn't answer police questions at a checkpoint, because they're out of control and stupid. They do it because it's about a total exercise of raw power. The TSA doesn't go in your pants and actually squeeze your body parts, or go into Miss America's pants, Miss USA's pants. To be technical, always mix those two up, Miss USA, in Dallas till she cries. They don't pull women's shirts off and ask them out on dates in Amarillo because they're crazy or out of control. I mean, they're crazy thugs, but they're crazy like a fox. It's about breaking your will. Now, Paul Watson has a link to the University of Melbourne paper on applied philosophy and public ethics at the University of Melbourne. This is out of Australia. But you can go pull up the American Medical Association sponsored type groups. You can go look at these. What they've done is they've gotten rid of the Hippocratic oath that they've had for thousands of years of a doctor does no harm, a doctor must help the poor, at least a third of their practice. It is an honor to be part of the doctor priesthood. That's what it is. That was the ancient priesthood of, what is it, Hippocrates. Gone. For at least, 20 years now in the U.S., longer in England. They do not give the Hippocratic oath. Now they are part of a bioethicist guild. And they say, well, bioethicist is just the ethics of medical stuff. No, it's been set up to replace the Hippocratic oath. And it is set up and directed by eugenicists. And they get off on the power trip of they'll decide what's going to happen. They'll decide if your kid's going to have an abortion. They'll decide who's inoculated. They'll decide that, well, a vaccine kills 1 out of 1,000, but we claim it has a greater good, so we say you have no freedom. They're the doctors that report you. They're the doctors that have you arrested if you don't do what they say, and the police come and arrest you even though there's no law. Doesn't matter. It happens all the time now. They are the bioethicist. And you can pull up everywhere where they say babies are mackerel. That's a Peter Singer quote. And they have big events where all the bioethicists come, you know, the top ones, thousands. You ought to read the minutes of these. It's all public. Go look it up for yourself. It's an endless ocean. I could never even scratch the surface. And all they talk about is how they're going to kill Granny to hire 10 teachers. That's the standard line to the bureaucrats. You'll get raises, you'll get more jobs if we kill old people. Remember Bill Gates? You think I'm joking? Just type in Bill Gates endorses death panels. And he says, well, we've got teachers here. This is an education conference. And his little ninny-nelly, non-threatening fake voice. His real voice is like, ah, Bill Gates, I'm here to dominate. But he has that MP, I mean, if you could hear his inner voice, just absolute slayer of pure death. But he has the, I'm trendy, non-threatening, Globalists are totally into that. And, of course, that's an ancient thing, going back to the gentleman that wore fancy clothes and acted real friendly but would take you outside in a sword fight if you talked wrong to him and stab you to death. So it's about controlled viciousness. And that's what Bill Gates does. And he's like, teachers, let me tell you how you... In fact, we could probably pull the clip. We played the clip like 20 times. You can pull it up. Bill Gates is like, we don't give Grandma that end-of-life care for that year. Keep her alive. We can, you're not supposed to say this because it's death panels, but it's true. You don't give her end-of-life care, you hire 10 teachers. And the teachers are like, I mean, they start clapping. They're, ooh, ooh, ooh. They're going to get some free goodies. So this is the culture. First, they collectivize things. And then once things have been collectivized, once this has happened, once this has been set up, once this has been developed, once this has been put in place, they say, well, we're going to decide what you can eat, how you can live, how much energy you can use, how much you can travel, because it's a collective, and you're taking other people's resources, and you're taking their health care that we've been collectivized into. I mean, it's a nightmare. It's like having every control freak in your city living in a big dormitory with you. Can you imagine all the control freaks and chicken necks and neurotic, cowardly weirdos that are waging war against reality and manhood and womanhood and family, and they just henpeck it and attack it from every angle, the safety shally Nazi, Soviet jackboots, whatever you want to call them. Can you imagine every nattering, ninnying, pushy, ninny male and ninny female, given the black uniform, given the power of the state, and given control of your life? That's what big government is. That's what collectivism is. And everyone who excels being denigrated and attacked and sucked off of by the big mega bankers that control the giant, corpulent servant class beneath them. Vampires on top sucking our blood, and cockroach vampire maggots from below burrowing into our intestines from beneath through the first entry they find, and just chewing our guts out and telling us we should thank them for it. Being stampeded over by a bunch of just greedy, hateful folks who I've learned a lot of the public hates handsome people and good-looking people and happy people, and hate people that build things, and hate people that have nice things, and hate people that have good lives, and hate it when they see your family doing good and looking good and being cheerful. They want to wreck your life. That's what the New World Order is. They want to stick their hands down your pants, and they want to kill your baby. And that's why until 3.5 years ago, every insert on every vaccine said never give a pregnant woman a vaccine. It causes autoimmune response and the rejection of the baby. Standard 101 for all nurses, all doctors listening know it. Suddenly they just went, you know what? We recommend extra shots for pregnant women. To just test, give them the shots, watch the women's babies die. And they die en masse, you hear about it everywhere, and it's just like, that's trendy. They're like, shut up, conspiracy theorist. All right, continuing. Ethicists argue killing newborn babies should be allowed. Infowars.com. And we've got so much news, this is already rolled off the front page. It's an incredible article. I think everybody should read this. Shocking reminder that eugenicist beliefs underpin medical establishment. A paper published in the Journal of Medical Ethics, that's the biggest one, funded by the American Medical Association and others, that abortion should be extended to make the killing of newborn babies permissible, even if the baby is perfectly healthy. You heard me right. And see, we're the bad people now. You're like, you don't want to kill a baby? You're an extremist. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yes, you are. The big TV agrees with me. It's trendy. The TV says run off a cliff. Trendy. Everything's about trendiness. And a shocking example of how the medical establishment is still dominated by eugenicist mindset. The paper is authored by Alberto Gibolini of Monash University in Melbourne and Francisca Minerva on the Center for Applied Philosophy at the Public Ethics at the University of Melbourne. And they sit up there as the high priest in hospitals now all over the world, including the U.S. The Wall Street Journal, we need to get Wesley Smith back on, that best-selling author that chronicles in each book hundreds of cases where people don't have family or whatever, and they're paralyzed neck down, in some cases chest down, and they don't know what they're doing and end up signing their estate over to the government, and the government murders them for their money. And I mean, there's videos of them going, please, I haven't had water or food in 8 days. I'm getting dizzy. I want to live. And then usually it's some court order that even gets, you know, a distant cousin in to see them, and there's video. I've covered these cases. Look it up. Nurses, every time I talk about it, call and go, oh, it's true. They're murdering somebody on floor 5 right now. We're not talking about just Terry Schiavo, where she's alive but can't move and has brain activity. We're talking about people talking, please don't kill me. Please. And they murdered them by dehydration. They just turn the lights down. It's bed sore time. Oh, yeah, the bed sores. Oh, it's fun. Every time I say this, people don't believe me, but you can search it. All over the U.S., I've seen case after case the last decade of flies going up the nose of veterans at VA hospitals and laying eggs in the sinus and then having a brain meal. People are like, but I thought screwworms were eradicated. No. Regular bottle flies will go up the nose if nobody's there. And though they're not supposed to be able to lay eggs in live flesh, they can lay them in the sinus. Then they'll necrose, eat it, and they get a brain meal. So, yes, regular flies will have a brain meal. And I'm an extremist because I don't want veterans having their brains eaten in brain meals. I should just stick a sticker on my car and go, I care about the troops, launch more wars, have them breathe DU, kill all the Arabs. Well, kill all the Arabs, our own stinking government's radicalizing the Muslims and putting an Al-Qaeda in charge everywhere. All right, continuing here. The authors agree that both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons. Really, in good cultures, they have even more protection because they're defenseless from wolves like you. But, you know, that's how it is. Common sense, just trample it. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. Now I'm trendy. The paper goes on. They argue that both fetuses and newborns do not have the same moral status as actual persons, and that because abortion is allowed even when there is no problem with the fetus health, killing a newborn should be permissible in all the cases where abortion is, including cases where the newborn is not disabled. That's a quote. Now, you heard me right. These are the heads of their departments. Last time I checked, Singer was the head of the philosophy, and he was also in the biology department. I forget. Go look up Peter Singer. I mean, they're everywhere. And they don't care because they've got the establishment behind them. Continuing. The fact that both are potential persons is morally irrelevant. Oh, they're potential persons. See, it's this idea of we're liberal and trendy. We say you're old and don't have a life worth living, and we say you're not a person. We're the high priest board that decides if you're obsolete or not. In fact, we played one of the intro clips for the obsolete man from the 1960s, but maybe when we come into the next segment, we can play the big one, where he's like, you are obsolete, Wordsworth. And he's like, no, I'm a human being. And he goes, Wordsworth. The state has decided there's no use for you. How did they know that in a 60s episode? Well, because Rod Serling had been a paratrooper in World War II, an anti-communist. He knew about authoritarianism. He studied the communist. He was anti-commie. This is what the commies did. They sent psychologists to arrest you. By the way, we do now have listeners that talk about FEMA camps, confirmed by name, are being arrested and put in mental institutions. As it's in the news that FEMA camps are being built, that's coming up next. Stay with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. Thank you so much for joining us. And later we're going to find the obsolete man clip where he's screaming at him saying Wordsworth, you know, shut up, and the rest of it. We played a shorter version of it, but I want to play that where they're saying the state is God and we decide that you're obsolete. Because you read these bioethics papers they're putting out, that's what they're saying. And they are killing thousands and thousands of Americans who end up being wards of the state. So they're already euthanizing people. And they introduce it to the public like you should have the right to say you want to be killed. What you don't understand is they are going to decide that because of the collective, you're not going to be taken care of. I mean, already in England, they don't give you a knee surgery. They don't give you eye surgery. They give you a cane. You wait 18 months for a brain surgery that's like 100% operable. If you get it in the first 6 months, they make you wait and die. That's not a talking point. Those are real cases. I've watched congressional reports and reports on C-SPAN from their parliament where I've seen them admit they're doing it. This isn't a game. Government wants control of your life in a collective hell where the globalists are offshore and above the collective that they create. Now, continuing with this news, FEMA puts out contract for emergency camps to house displaced citizens. Solicitation calls for camps to be ready for occupation within 72 hours. And it goes on to say that it's for displaced citizens during collapse. Now, what did I tell you over a decade ago? They won't come out and say, hey, we're setting up these emergency camps to put political dissidents in. Even though I've been to urban warfare drills and watched them training for that, had congressional hearings, the Rex 84 hearings where it was admitted it was for political dissidents, and they told the Congressman Jack Brooks that brought it up, hey, that's classified, don't bring that up. The Miami Herald reported it. People always ask me, what's my proof of this? I've made whole police state films, 4 of them documenting it. The latest has all the info, Police State 4. It's free online, for heaven's sakes. We've got the Emergency Centers Act that said, oh, the government already has old bases designated for collapse and housing people and political uprisings. Civil unrest is the term. And we want to expand this. So there it is. It's the old bases. And then we have the biggest prison population in the world, now 6 million, not even per capita, biggest in the world, period, bigger than communist China with 1.1 billion people. We have a bigger prison population with 310 million. People living here, 6 million behind bars, another 10 million or so on probation of one type or another. And people are like, good, we have law and order. No, we have one of the highest crime rates, too. Because more prisons creates more crime, because they're colleges of crime. Then you can't get a job once you get out of there, because you've got the criminal record. So you stay in crime. It's all been actuaried out. It's all been engineered out. They know exactly what they're doing. It's why they ship the drugs in. And then the nonviolent people use them. They put them in the prisons. Then they become more hardcore criminals. But here it is. Now, this is now in the featured news archive at Infowars.com from last night. FEMA puts out contract for emergency camps to house displaced citizens. And I'm going to read more of that after we come back out of break into the next hour, and then I'm going to, at the 8 after, have a guest on fighting back against fluoride. Then we'll have open phones. Then Aaron Dykes is coming up. But it is good news that in Utah and other states, they are moving to repeal the NDAA. I mean, those of you out there that are in denial about FEMA camps, the government says they'll arrest you and kill you and never tell anybody where you went. And the state police across the country, I've got a case of this, now disappearing people for the Fed. All right, we are on the road. This is hour number 2. We have an activist who's doing a great job out in California trying to get fluoride out of the water, popping in for 2 segments, because it's all about victory. Coming up in the next segment. Then Aaron Dykes is going to do the 3rd hour. And I'm going to be back in Austin tomorrow, my friends. Been an amazing trip out here on the road. I've really got to ruminate and mull over and stew, cogitate, process would be the modern trendy term, how incredible it is meeting thousands of InfoWars listeners, supporters, fellow travelers, lovers of freedom. It's just so incredible. And to see the light in their eyes and the families bringing their children, and just to look into the eyes of people of every race, color, creed, religion who love freedom. It's like looking into your own soul. And it was a wonderful communion, a wonderful fellowship, a wonderful brotherhood, sisterhood, humanness. And I do not feel worthy to be bringing you this information. I do not feel worthy to be reaching as many people as I am, and I am humbled and I am thankful. But I am dedicated, and I am aggressive, and I am in your corner because you are in mine. We're all in this together. The elite are going to destroy themselves if they're successful. We're even trying to save them. I'm way past even hating these murdering, vicious control freaks. Some of their darker servants are just totally turned over to destruction. And I don't hate them. I want to destroy them. I want to shut them down. I want to break them so they can't go on hurting people, but it's more disgust. See, I'm beyond fear, I'm beyond horror, I'm beyond any of it. I understand how things work. I know the basics. And if we can just get the general public to wake up to the basics, which will mind blow you, the basics will blow your mind. The basics of this universe, the basic laws of human activity, and the secrets of human activity are so mind-blowing. Like, I know more about women now than I ever knew in my entire... I can't even imagine how much I understand women now. And then I don't even care to try to even use the information. That's another problem with the knowledge. It is one thing to know how men operate, to know how women operate. And when you're conscious, when you're illuminated, as the Illuminati calls it, but they're not really illuminated. They create a counterfeit. People are probably like, illuminated? That's Illuminati. No. That's their term. They call it illuminated. Well, Christ said, I bring the light, or you're the light of the world. Does that mean you're Illuminati? No. The devil's system creates a counterfeit. And I'm not even Bible thumping here at you. I'm talking about just general ideas of being awake. And I love it when somebody walks up to me on the street and they say, I'm awake, or I woke up. That says it all. That doesn't mean you're believing what I believe. That doesn't mean you're seeing what I see. It means you yourself are going, wow, there's more than meets the eye. There's a lot going on here. I better start not just going along to get along. I better start really trying to figure things out. That's what waking up means. When you're asleep, you don't know where you are. You're in the dark. You're dreaming. You're in a fantasy land. When you're awake, you're at least open and staring and trying to figure things out. And being awake, knowing how people work, knowing what motivates people, knowing these secrets is just incredible. And I just want to try to teach them to people. It doesn't mean I implement them. Doesn't mean I carry it all out. I'm not even conscious when it comes to fighting tyranny. I mean, I'm just up here. I fight so hard. I don't have time to craft what I say or doing. It's pretty much just guts. What I'm telling you, who I am, what I'm thinking, what's going on. I am realizing it. I am seeing it. I am understanding it. And I am resonating out there to you. You must awaken. You must get involved. You must get informed. We'll be right back. PrisonPlanet.tv is streaming the show live right now. All right, we are back live. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It, of course, is Tuesday, the 28th day of February, 2012. And I am on the road here today. We got into our destination about midnight from driving out of Orlando, Florida, where we talked to a overcapacity crowd of over 1,100 people. They never sold out that auditorium facility we were at. And I really appreciate all of you coming out and helping us get out to Orlando and to Dallas, Texas. I do plan in May or June to now do a bigger trip out west to affiliates in New Mexico, Arizona, California, and then maybe Utah, Washington State, and then cut down through Colorado back to Texas. I mean, I might do something where I talk to 6 different radio affiliate audiences, and then also have big events. The issue is I'm traveling this time with my family, and we don't like to keep the kids up past midnight or so here on the RV. So we pulled into a hotel to stay last night, and there's too many of us really stay on the bus or RV most nights. We've stayed on it some evenings. And then by the time we get up in the morning and everything, the kids wake up about 6 a.m. Poor Richard is in there hooking up the equipment. We hadn't tested doing it from the bus yet, and the hotel Wi-Fi wasn't making it through the wall out here in the middle of nowhere in the Florida Panhandle. So we're out in the bus and drove to a spot to find where we had good stuff. And as soon as we turned the generator off, there wasn't enough power, even though it says there was, to run things. But that's the kind of unforeseen things. Great job to the crew, though, getting us on air. They set up a great system that has 3 backups, but that itself was using too much power. So we're just coming to you via the miracle of Skype right now. And we're beta testing this. And this was the beta trip. I think the beta trip did about a 95. I would have been happy if we got a B+. Instead, we got right at about an A+. So just exemplary job to the entire InfoWars crew, and again, you, the listeners and affiliates out there, while we're testing this out and doing this. But it's amazing to be reaching probably more than 3 million people over this 3-hour show today, conservatively, from a RV in the Florida Panhandle over Skype. Just incredible. And it'll be even better next time. Of course, if I broadcast from an affiliate almost every time I'm out of town, I can just broadcast directly from their own systems via ISDN line once we do that. But again, this was a beta test from the road itself, and I'll be on the road again tomorrow and then back in studio. Hallelujah. This has been fun, but I'm ready to get back to the hacienda. Okay, some of the news, and we're going to our guest, but I'm going to cover this news after our guest has gone at probably about 40 after or so. Rights group petitions FAA on use of drones in U.S. skies. Watchdogs warns that UAVs increase First Amendment risk for would-be political dissenters. Ethicists argue killing newborn babies should be allowed, saying the government will decide if you are a human. And a lot of these ethicists that head up the major hospital boards, you can pull it up, say kill babies that are even 3 years old, even if they're healthy. The state will assess if you're going to be a good citizen and if you have value. That goes back to a bunch of eugenicists, Bertrand Russell and others, Bernard Shaw, George Bernard Shaw. We've got video clips of that old film. We played it, and then 6 months later, Glenn Beck played the exact same clips on a show, which I think is great. It's my son, Glenn Beck, who copies everything I do, which is good, is getting better and better. In fact, he got good enough to get kicked out of Fox. I know the inside baseball on that. So even if they kill me, my son, who's kind of a little too neoconish and things, still, he's growing. He's turning into more of a patriot, and I'm proud of my son, Glenn Beck. Okay, I'm serious. I am. It's a little bit of a joke there, but he is my son. And my son has done some dirty tricks to me in the past. So he doesn't want folks to know who his father is, and that's okay. Continuing. People like Ron Paul and G. Edward Griffin and countless others are my father in political awakening. My physical father helped wake me up to the New World Order. My uncle, my mother's brother, really helped wake me up. Bobby Vaughn, John Bircher, he would babysit me when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, or next door neighbor, and play anti-Illuminati Anthony Hilder records while I would run over and steal a drink of his beer. I mean, you know, a lot of people are my father as well, but I am Glenn Beck's father, and we all know that. No, that's not true. That's impossible. No, Glenn, I am your father. Search your feelings, Glenn. You know it to be true. Okay, continuing here. I was talking to one Fox News guy, and they said that Glenn got so mad whenever I put out that public letter, open letter to Glenn Beck, and said, look, Glenn, I know you're copying all my info, quit twisting it. He reportedly went into a conniption fit and threw fits at Fox News and said, I will, do this and that if you ever have Alex Jones on. I was told this directly by a Fox News host. I'm just going to leave it at that. What, you don't want... Okay, now I'm digressing. I apologize. We've got the big news coming up as Utah moves to block the secret arrest, secret imprisonment of U.S. citizens off to the FEMA camps. I thought there'd no FEMA camps, but they say they'll secretly arrest us and kill us if they want to, but there's no camps. They're not going to hold us. We should have the biggest prison population in the world. Oh, and of course, the biggest news, I talk about it so much, it's kind of passé, but they are going to release, New York Times reported last Friday. I put a video out on this, and people are saying it's not true. Okay, it's not true then. It's just the government admits they're going to release the weaponized, airborne, transmittable to human, super bird flu, that the old version, when humans could catch it, it's like 65, 70 or so, it varies in the study, % die. But the good news is humans usually can't get it. You got to get it directly into your body. It's not airborne. But if you get it, 6.5 times out of 10, you're deader than a fat hammer. Well, now they souped it up and made it airborne, and they're going to release the RNA sequence and tell you how to make it. But I'm an extremist for being upset about that. If it gets out, I don't know, my kids will probably die, get buried. And the globalists all say they want to kill us. They're building bunkers and seed vaults and poisoning the water and food. And talk all the time about releasing a bioweapon to kill most of us and take over what's left of the earth, better than a neutron bomb to reduce population. But I'm supposed to not be concerned about that. I'm fear-mongering. You know what? I'm real sorry. I'm real sorry I'm warning you. Even the FBI and others are freaking out over it, saying, do not release that. Do not release it. I told the government, go visit Pianka, who heads up the biology department at UT, talking about how he wants to kill 90% of people with airborne Ebola and going, it will be released soon. I'm sad for my family that has to die, but we need to. And I'm like, red alert, folks. He's in the biology department saying that soon the weaponized Ebola will be released. But I'm not supposed to be concerned about that. You know what? I hope that cooler heads prevail and this stuff doesn't get released. But they're setting up plausible deniability for all these different weaponized things to get released. Bird flu is just one of them. The mouse pox kills over 90% of the mammals it comes in contact with. Some studies, 98, 99%. Now, if that isn't the top story for people that really want to be concerned, I love my wife, I love my children, I love my family, and I don't want the globalists to win. They're publishing it next week. There are thousands of labs that within a month, they estimate, will be able to develop it. How long until the crazy eugenicist that works at one of these releases it? How long until it accidentally gets out? All right, I'm going to shut up and go to our guest till 40 after, and then I'm going to get into the FEMA camp news. But man, I tell you, you idiots that laugh at me out there, I know why you laugh, because you're scared. You see everything I talk about coming true, and I'm telling you what's coming next. What's a real probability? I'm talking about you dying. And they'll probably have some vaccine that sterilizes you or something as a side effect that they'll give you to save you from this. Then the question is, are you going to take that? And I'll have to watch the very perpetrators grandstanding as a bunch of saviors. Now let's shift gears to the so-called sodium fluoride, which is a cover for a type of acid with hundreds of heavy metals and other garbage in it. Hundreds of bad things, including multiple heavy metals, to be technical. Jeff Green, National Director of Citizens for Safe Drinking Water in San Diego, where they've almost gotten it out but haven't been able to, like Tampa, Florida, and areas of Canada. We're going to break here in about a minute and a half, but tell us what's coming up, Jeff, and the success you've been able to have and where this fight is. Okay, buddy?
Well, thank you very much for having me on the program. The city of San Diego that you're mentioning actually had a law that prohibited fluoridation since the early 1950s. And it took a lot for them to finally try to shove it down San Diego's throat, and they may have done so for as long as 2 years, but there's nothing yet that suggests they'll be able to continue beyond that point.
I should have added, they're fighting to fluoridate there. That's right. It was months ago I wanted to get you on, and I'd forgotten what it was about, and my producer told me you were on. So absolutely. I just knew you were fighting it out there, and it was a big battle.
Well, it is, and the difference being is that for the longest time we were able to block it, and for a 2-year period of time now, they will have it in the water through the city of San Diego, but we don't believe that they'll be able to continue beyond that. In the state of California, more than 110 cities turned down fluoridation, and so they quit trying to work with it on an individual city level, and they went to the state and rushed it through and bragged about rushing it through so that people didn't have any opportunity to respond. And so...
All right, stay there.
Yes.
Because we come back, that's right. That's the new attack plan, New Jersey, California, Arkansas, everywhere. They're coming in and trying to have the states make you take it by law, which is incredibly criminal. We'll be right back with our guest straight ahead on how we can beat these eugenicist murderers.
Products work for many others.
Yeah, months ago, I saw some clips of Jeff Green speaking before the city council. He's also an effective national figure educating people. I've seen him on Dr. Mercola's show and his reports. And the issue here is that all over the United States, we've educated people. The FDA's own scientists have come out and said it gives you bone cancer, dental fluorosis, doesn't help you. It's very toxic. It's more than just fluoride in there. It's a cover name for toxic waste. Let's get it out. And their response is, okay, we'll just pass a law making you have it. Because it's a giant industry that it would have to pay to store this. And the eugenicists like it because it's another nasty thing to do. I mean, you're being assaulted, folks. And this hoax is starting to come down. Just like with the vaccines, people aren't vaccinating now. They're trying to make it the law. They shoot your kids up in California without telling you with the Gardasil and other stuff. So go ahead, Jeff Green, break down the fight you've got in San Diego, what the state's trying to do, and the next level of the fight, sir.
Well, actually, it's all over the United States, and I guess if I could just mention that there's a couple of things that should have already resolved all this. When the Journal of American Dental Association, the journal that almost all the dentists who belong to the ADA, usually receive, when it came out in the year 2000 as a cover story and told people it doesn't work when you swallow it, you would have thought it would have gone away. When the CDC and the Centers for Disease Control, most of your audience probably knows that, but the Centers for Disease Control came out with a report that called it one of the most important things that had happened in the last century. And but if you look at page 4, it says there's no correlation between the amount of fluoride that's in the enamel of the tooth and whether you have tooth decay or not. And that if there's not enough fluoride in the saliva to have impact. So what most people think are the accurate way of going about that, or the best way to go about this, is to educate them or provide them the information. Most of the time what you get is somebody saying, thanks for sharing. And so what we've had to find is that there are, when someone actually hears about this for the very first time, they're almost incredulous as to how all this could be true. And one of the questions that comes up is, how could this happen? If that's true, how do they get by with it? And the truth is they break the law. They actually break the law. The difference is those laws or regulations that are also part of those laws are kind of wound up in a bureaucratic maze that means the average citizen can't just go running in and shoot at it and have it stop.
I'm glad you just hit the nail on the head. It's criminal to forcibly medicate even with a good drug because of the Nuremberg Code, common sense, common law, and federal law, state law. But to put a deadly toxic waste in the water, mislabel it, call it fluoride, when it's not even that, as you know, right, and know that it's doing this because the politicians are paid off, it is criminal. And it's time to start going after them with civil lawsuits, bare minimum.
Well, we actually do have a lawsuit that was filed this last year. It was filed here in the Federal District Court down in San Diego, Federal District Court of Southern California, and it was individuals who live in the San Diego County region of California. Actually, it's Southern California, and it was filed against Metropolitan Water District of Southern California that delivers something like water to something 17 million people. And what the claim was is not that fluoride's bad, despite that's what most people wanted to talk about. Instead, it was that they knowingly added a substance that has never been approved for the claims that they've been making, and that they did it, without anybody's consent, and that they've taken this hydrofluosilicic acid, which is hard for most people to say, but in fact, they took this particular substance. They weren't compelled by the state to do it. They did it on their own, and they basically have been shoving it down everybody's throat. So this particular lawsuit has gone through the complaint cycle. It's gone through what is normal, would be the Metropolitan Water District basically having a motion to dismiss. We oppose that, then they reply, and we were supposed to have actually heard oral arguments on it as of January 26th. The judge has the option to not do that and to hold off for a while. We haven't had an answer back for it. But, we've anticipated in many cases that if you're in the lower court that you're still going to have to go to the appellate court, and we're prepared to go all the way with this. But it's very narrowly focused. It's focused on the fact that they have, practiced deceptive business practices by not telling everybody that none of this stuff has ever been approved for anybody, and then secondarily that they're adding an unapproved drug to the water without our consent. And so that's the primary aspect of the case, to go directly to what you're talking about. Now,
and I think it's also good to launch more torpedoes. I mean, others can do it. You've done your job. And to sue city council people who are getting campaign money, you can go get their filings, find out where they got it, when they've gotten money from the phosphate industry. You can also go after them for deception. You can also go after them basically for bribes. You can go after them for the fact that they're engaged in fraud, putting a toxic chemical in your water for political campaign contributions. And even if they survive the lawsuit, it'll force it into the news. I mean, look, they're assaulting us with chemical weapons. We will assault them with lawsuits. And we'll be right back, Mr. Green. You're doing an incredible job. We're going to learn more how we can get on the offensive against these murdering trash. Stay with us. I'm praised for liberty. I realize what I'm facing. I know we're going up against hardcore scientific killers that think we're so stupid we'll just pay attention to football and baseball and fashion and not care about the GMO designed to sterilize us or the deadly sodium fluoride. We're being assaulted. The cancer rates are up over 2,000% on average. I got a lot of friends and family that are dead or are dying, and I'm mad about it. I don't like it. You understand that? I take it personal. They didn't screw me up. They didn't screw me up. I've known neighbors and stuff that have caught, years ago, kids in their garage stealing beer or whatever. I've got one, a quasi-acquaintance, I've known him off and on for years, who caught a teenager in there stealing, didn't have a gun on him, and beat the guy to a pulp. And police came, and he didn't get in trouble for it. It's his right to do it. But, I mean, I'll be honest, if I catch somebody stealing a lawnmower or something and running off with it, I'm probably not going to stomp them. I'm going to say, hey, that's, that's mine. And then if they blow up or something, the point is it's not worth the danger. I don't get mad at them. Now, you come in my house, I'm going to kill you because that's your home invading now. My point is, I'm not going to get mad over a neighbor's dog going to the bathroom or something. Like I've seen neighbors years ago. That's why I moved into the country, getting arguments with each other over their dog going in their yard, or people parking in their parking space in apartments. I actually heard about a fight between a guy I knew and some other guy back when I lived in an apartment like 12 years ago. And the cops came and everything, I was told. There was blood everywhere. I just knew that I saw, blood and stuff on the ground and heard about it from the neighbors. The point is, you all know those stories. Oh, if you parked in my parking space, stop doing it. Hey, man, don't bow up to me. You got a problem? Let's go. I mean, so what if somebody parks in your parking space? I mean, go over and say something to them. They bow up to you. Okay, whatever. I'll just start parking in yours, okay? You want to be a punk. I mean, that's the way I am. And then I guess if somebody got in my face and hits me, I'll get in a fight with them. But somebody's trying to poison my kids and me? Man, I mean, I'm mad. I mean, I'm angry. I mean, I'm in the mode to pull somebody's head off. But I'm going to physically fight them because that's how we do it in the 21st century. But I'm going to savagely call them out. And I'm going to try to activate the same survival instincts that I know you've got that I've got. Let me tell you something. There's unlimited energy in survival. There's unlimited energy in taking stuff personal. There's unlimited energy in getting focused and getting angry and taking action like Jeff Green's doing. And I want him to give out any websites so people can duplicate what he's done. They've successfully for years blocked fluoride being added to 16 million people because that San Diego pumps out to everybody in that whole area there in Orange County and the rest of it. The most populous area of the country after Manhattan. And they're close to getting it out now. For 2 years, the feds came in with the state, spent millions, I'm going from memory, he can correct me, but getting it in there. And now in other places, in Canada, in states like New Jersey, in Arkansas, they've passed laws last year saying we're going to fluoridate. Now they're coming in and saying, parents, you need to give your kids fluoride tablets if you're on a well. There's fluoride baby water everywhere. They know we're waking up, so their answer to hide this criminal hoax is to just get more in our face, just like the vaccine makers. A, do you agree with that statement, Jeff?
Yes, I would like to change some of the facts that you have with part of it, but probably more importantly, we have ways to stop this. And part of it is to take that anger and injustice, which you experience and I experience, and we both know it's not just the fluoride. It's that all of these intrusions that place you in peril. And to basically shift that in this particular issue, instead of, because what they want us to do is to fight about it, because what that does is allow them to just call people's name and try to characterize it and so forth. And so if you're a small enough community, you can overwhelm that. You can do it through your own personal presence, and you can spend the time and energy. But when you've got the media working against you, unfortunately, the people's minds you have to change, unfortunately, aren't listening to you most of the time. So we've actually found ways to be able to guide people through so that that we can actually focus on accountability, on full disclosure, transparency, compliance with all the laws, and in conformance with already established standards. And what we find out is we already have things in our favor that will allow us to stop this. But
let me stop you again. Let me stop you, then give you the floor. They tried to pass a law last year to not let the TSA grope people sexually in the airport, and then finally some state reps went, wait a minute, it's already against the law. That's why the state police and FBI can't do this. How are you doing this? Well, they created a new agency and just gave them executive authority that doesn't stand up to do it. So we don't need another law, just enforce the regular laws that are there. Go ahead.
Well, you're exactly right. And like I said before, what happens is we have this bureaucratic maze that exists all across the country, which basically prevents the average citizen from being able to get through it. So what we actually do is show people, here's how you can do that. Here's how you peel back the layers. If you try to do it all at one time, it's kind of like, the guy with the rifle charging up the hill, and you wonder why he got shot. You have to. We have them surrounded. We know that they're not in the right. We have too many people who know what's going on. But as long as we run in to get them instead of realizing, well, how do we pull this apart? And so I'm happy for people to call me and talk to me. We can actually look at, formalizing basically a very unique situation for their particular community so that you can peel these things back and force it so that you no longer have this interference with you getting the best drinking water available. And you know, Alex, as well as anything, this is, the fluoridation angle is just the tip of the spear. It's somebody that knows that it was wrong from the very beginning, and as long as they keep on calling it the greatest thing in the world, you're supposed to continue forward with it. It's just the tip of the spear of all these things.
You're right, because if you can prove that they know that, say, the H1N1 vaccine didn't protect you and doubles your chances of getting the regular flu, major government studies of Canada and the U.S., and that the companies know it's a hoax, if you could show them that it was the end of World War II, the people really trusted the government for the first time in U.S. history, we were the good guys, and they said, hey, we're going to put this in your water to help your teeth. And folks are like, yeah, but some people said, no, it's going to dumb the public down. It was used in the camps. They're like, oh, shut up, conspiracy theorist. And now here we are all these years later, and we've seen the health effects of it. The awakening is here. And I've studied the different cities, depending on what company they buy it from. I looked up like 2 years ago from insiders, what was in Missouri, sent me the data sheet on it. The so-called fluoride they were buying from China had over 300 chemicals in it. And it was just pure toxic waste, and they called it fluoride. And as you pointed out, even the so-called pure fluoride isn't even fluoride. Talk a little bit about what we know they're putting in under the name fluoride and some of the health effects that we know about. I mean, I know you're going at the basics that it's illegal to do this, and then I want you to speak to the fact, because I know you've seen it. Fox News, is saying, oh, maybe lithium needs to be in the water. The Japanese government's saying it, another toxic heavy metal, because, that'll cut down on suicide. And, oh, we want to put statins in the water. Even kids need them, which they admit basically.
That's part of it that's been out now. And, of course, if we had applied any what we call criteria or standards, that basically would have to do with anything we put in the water, none of these things would survive because you'd ask for them to take the burden of accountability on it. So this is actually part of how we've been able to affect in an area that, let's say, has been fluoridated for 40 or 50 years and realize that place doesn't – the public policy has been supported by the courts. The courts have basically, even though I don't agree with it, they basically said that the public policy is a legitimate government interest to reduce harm to people. The difference being is that you now get down to what shows up in the truck. And exactly what you're talking about, the actual substance is typically hydrofluosilicic acid. And this hydrofluosilicic acid is not present in nature by itself. It's created by pouring sulfuric acid over the ore that in the phosphate mines. It creates a gas, and this gas, they spray water down on top of it and capture it, and they now have this slurry of chemicals. They have arsenic and lead and cadmium and mercury and to a certain extent radionuclides. They actually have a whole series of, not because they were added, but because they were part of the ore in the first place. Now, the amazing part is the reason why they had to actually pour the sulfuric acid over the ore and separate it out is because normal plants would not be able to use the phosphate as fertilizer if it had fluoride with it, because most plants will not take it up through the root system. And so because of that, they're actually taking this substance that plants won't take and now separating it and then shipping it out to everybody. And the amazing part is, in 1988, the U.S. EPA gave up all oversight of direct water additives. Now, most people think EPA's would be controlling that. They gave it all up.
Yeah, let's be clear. The EPA last year, without law, started putting $1,000 to $5,000 fines per infraction, and after the third infraction, they could adjudicate $1 million fines. Look it up on hay dust, and began sending agents out without warrants with meters, just like when a cop pulled me over and did a meter on light on my window tint and said, oh, I guess it isn't too dark, you can go. They have meters with a little light they shoot from point to point. This is on record. I've seen it on the news. And boom, if there's hay dust in your barn, bam, OSHA fines. Oh, hay dust, grass dust.
Right.
Now, of course there's dust in a barn. Believe me, I've loaded a lot of hay up into the loft. The point is, it's to shut down small business. Meanwhile, there's no regulation over water additives, and so it's the biggest joke. I want to explain this again. I've done reports. I've done videos. You can go to Infowars.com and just type in fluoride from China. We did whole reports on it. I was told about it by insiders and did a search, found articles on it. I was told by family, actually, in East Texas that runs a water department in a small town, and they... well, I'm not going to get them in trouble. Let's just say a lot of water departments go, the city may be paying for this. We're just going to get rid of it. The problem is if they put it in a field, it'll kill the whole field. They can't dump it in a creek. It'll kill everything. But I'm going to just shut up. I'm going to stop right there. The point is, there's a bunch of water department people that are quietly just getting rid of the fluoride on the side because they know and have read it. And on there, most of it now is, a lot of it's from China, a lot of it's from Florida. But the stuff from China, you think they're just putting melamine in the milk. You think they're just putting lead in the toys. Folks, they're worse toxic waste, mercury, lead, arsenic, and radioactive isotopes. And see, I've been talking about this now for years, and people get their local news to cover it. You put a Geiger counter on the city pipes, it's radioactive, and they go, we don't know where it's coming from. Must be the lake. Terrorists must have put radiation in there. And I'm like, no, your city got caught. It's the additive. It's the residue. Radiation is not good for your teeth. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. I'm ranting. It's just, this is so incredible. This is so off the charts. We've got to warn people.
Well, and in fact, what happens is, the promoters of fluoridation would say that it's all certified, but what they forget to mention to anybody is that it's never batch tested, meaning that they might have a certification even one time a year, and most of us aren't too happy about thinking what kind of certification took place over in China. But in any case, they're not certified for what shows up in the truck. They just basically say, yeah, we've been certified one time a year. So, you know, a large part of the way that we've been able to basically address this is to make certain we get down to exactly what you're talking about, and we're dealing specifically with the product and making certain that someone becomes accountable for it. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to raise their hand. And I'd be happy if I know you have a short time today. If you want to give out my email or something like that or telephone number, I'm happy to take calls.
Absolutely. We're just going to get you on for one or two segments, but I wanted to have basically banner for the whole hour now if you've got time. Give me the best websites you think to look at. Your email for folks that want to link up with you. I think you're one of the most articulate, focused, professional guys on this subject. But, I mean, you know, if you were in Soviet Russia, where on record they put fluoride in the water, that was even in the Nuremberg trials where the Nazis learned about it to make people sedate. If you were there, if you worked in an orphanage and they told you to put poison in the kids' milk, how about you just dump the milk in the trash can and say you're poisoning the kids? You know, if you don't have the courage to speak out, it's time for water department people. I know a lot of them are waking up and going to the city and saying, take it out. But the lobbyists come and give them a little bit of money because the city's paying millions on average for the poison. But, I mean, how about at least you just throw it in the landfill? How about, I mean, I'm telling folks that work at water districts, it's poison. You know it's poison. You know the insert on it says if you ate a gram of this, it would kill you. Then why are you putting it in the water, sending it to your family downstream and everybody else? It's time for people to not just sue. I think it's good to sue, good to be focused, good to be calm. But I think it's also good to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. That's very effective, Mr. Green, to wake people up out of their trance. All of us are attacking on different fronts in different ways because this is run around like a chicken with your head cut off issue. When they're putting lead, mercury, radon, uranium, plutonium, radioactive particles in there as well, and after a water district's been doing it for 10 years, local news checked into what I said and put Geiger counters on the water department pipes, and it's 50 times in one newscast over what it's supposed to be. The Geiger counter's pegging. But then the news isn't allowed to say it's the fluoride. They run around bumbling saying, we don't know why. I mean, do you see the level of the hoax I'm talking about here, sir?
Well, I certainly do, and in fact, that's one of the reasons why we have to pierce through it, because, we have to recognize that the media plays a large role. They would rather describe the he said, she said. And one thing that you'll see, and you'll see this with other issues that I'm certain that you've covered because I've watched or listened to your programs before, that what will happen is that they, in a piece that supposedly is a report or that is news, they will state that, the fluoride's put in the water because it reduces tooth decay, and it's been proven to do that, but these people claim that it's harmful. I mean, that's not news. That's their opinion, going out there and selling this themselves.
Yes.
That's what we're all up against, basically. So I have a telephone number, 800-728-3833, that people are welcome to call me on, and I can help guide them through certain issues. I have an email that they can do where I can send them specific documents depending upon what state that they're in that may be helpful. And that's an easy one. It's just my name with reverse, but Green Jeff, GREENJEFF, at Cox, that's COX.net. And I would be happy to talk with people because there are ways for us to do it. You have to be a little bit more disciplined, but it really is something. If we don't stand up for this, I'm sorry, it's just like you said before, or Alex said before, you're looking at statin drugs or lithium or other things going to be placed in the water too.
And, of course, they always make jokes in national publications, Southern Poverty Law Center and others. Alex Jones thinks fluoride's bad, and he thinks they want to put drugs to control our minds. Ha, ha, ha. Meanwhile, AP, Fox, CNN, Japanese TV, they're going, oh, we should put lithium in. Oh, we should put statins in. Oh, we should certify embryos beforehand to make sure there's not aggressive genes in them. I mean, they're just total nanny state of total control coming down on us. Jeff, in closing, where is the fight going right now? What can we do around the country to fight back against states that are trying to pass laws now saying, you know, before they just snuck it in, now they're like, it's the law, you will do this.
Well, here's the part to remember is by the time it gets to a city council meeting, and I'm sorry what this sounds like, but whether it's at a city council meeting or it's a state legislature, by the time the decisions have already been made. You know, they've already made those decisions that, you know, these are dog and pony shows when you get there. So that the opportunity is contact with people who are in the community that are like-minded. You get in contact with people like myself or other people that are involved, and you prepare for it, because the truth is you can block this, that you can stop them from putting it in the water.
I want to hear how you do that. Let's do one more segment. We'll be right back. Infowars.com. We need to get this guy on. Listen, Don Henley, his songs are so good. I was rediscovering some of that music on this road trip, listening to it on the iPad. So politically aware from like the 80s with deep understanding. There's folks out there that know exactly what's going on. It's just they've got to speak out. They've got to be involved. By the way, I talked to Dave Mustaine this morning. He's been trying to get a hold of me for weeks, and I'm out of control. I don't even call Charlie Sheen back when he calls me and stuff. I just am so obsessed with news and information. But I really like Dave Mustaine. And he said he did not endorse Santorum. He was just offhandedly saying, I like this guy, I like that guy, I like Ron Paul, but then he says stuff that doesn't make sense. I like Santorum on the Christian issues. Side issue, Dave Mustaine said, well, I already put a press release out. You know, he would have basically said all this on my show first, but I never got the message. And he said, no, I did not endorse Santorum. But he's invited me over to the concert and stuff when he's in Austin next week and more. I'll just leave it at that, so look for some surprises. He was going to get out to town a few months ago, and then I had some stuff that came up, and so couldn't host him. But he is coming to town, coming to stay over at my house. That should be interesting. You can't make up that level of wildness. The combo of Alex Jones, Dave Mustaine. Not name dropping. It's just that is interesting. I haven't plugged books, videos, DVDs, nothing in over 2 hours. I'm losing money on this trip, by the way, because I'm giving half the profits to radio stations. I won't be able to do that next time. It's just I can't lose money and keep operating. But be sure and buy the books, the DVDs, the materials, the PrisonPlanet.tv memberships if you believe in this info and this platform for activists and fighters that we, you know, use it as a jump point for others to build them up and inform others. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to our guest, Jeff Green, really an articulate gentleman, really valiantly fighting the forced poisoning of the public, not even forced medicating. National Director of Citizens for Safe Drinking Water. We got a minute or two, 3 minutes left here. I wanted to let you take us out of this hour. Aaron Dykes is coming up with Cindy Sheehan, and I'll also be popping in. I've got to go get packed. We keep getting to our destinations at like midnight, so I've got to go get packed to get back on the bus just so I can get to where the next place we're going by like midnight so I can get home earlier tomorrow. And so I probably will call in on my own show once Cindy Sheehan comes on. So I got a few questions for her as well, but Aaron Dykes coming up. Just take us out. How can you block it before they put the poison in? Because now they're coming in trying to actually make it the law.
Well, and in fact, whether they've already put it in or they're going to put it in, we have to recognize, one, that this is not an educational game, and that's the hardest part for most of us. Almost every one of us started out thinking that if we could educate them, if we could tell, if they knew what we knew, they wouldn't be doing this. And then you find out that's not true at all. That this is a power game. It's about control. It's about power. And in fact, you have to understand what power you have to affect this. And as long as we're begging them or, you know, somehow or other trying to cajole them into thinking that they're doing the right thing. You know, anytime you're in a water system where someone's decided they're going to put something in there and doesn't realize you can't control dosage unless you control how much water somebody drinks, you know, you don't have somebody that is smart enough to be your representative. So the real question then is, do you throw them all out? Well, I mean, gosh, it's all happening all across the United States. Or do you find ways to be able to force them to engage? Right now, anybody who is basically what we call a legislative person, a person who's been elected, they have certain protections that says they get to rely on experts. And what we found is that there's a process of being able to really eliminate that reliance on those experts.
This is too important. Do it 2 or 3 minutes on this last segment on how we can reverse this for the info warriors out there to launch new offensive against these globalists. All right, we are back live. Aaron Dykes and Cindy Sheehan coming up. Some of the news at Infowars.com. Dem operative with CIA background calls for open primary shenanigans. Rights group petition FAA on use of drones in U.S. skies. Eugenicists, bioethicists argue killing newborn babies should be allowed. Obama promises Israel use of bases for Iran attack if it will wait. And our guest dropped. We're trying to get him back on to just give us a blurb on how the process, how they defeated him. If not, we'll get him back on to break that down. I was going to have him on for like 10 minutes, but I went to a whole rant about it. Obama promises, again, Israel use of bases for Iran attack if it will wait. Vaccination rights attorney Patricia Finn threatened with criminal charges if she keeps explaining to people there's no law their kids to take vaccines. She goes in when the schools say it's the law, you got to take shots, shows it isn't, and instead of the criminals getting in trouble, they're talking about disbarring her. You got her on yesterday. Amazing interview right there in an article. Also, the secret media war of 2012. Pasteurized milk linked to cancer. InfoWars Nightly News video. Very important. 11 reasons to get your kids out of government schools. Man, I meant to cover that. That is an amazing article. And then there's this other big report here that I mentioned, but it's such big news. Doomsday in Wyoming. InfoWars Nightly News. And the newspapers are reporting they're preparing basically for the federal government to totally collapse. And so Wyoming would have to take over the government and run things itself, which is what the states are supposed to do to begin with. And FEMA puts out contract for emergency camps to house displaced citizens. So that's all up there right now. Utah is moving to block the NDAA, which openly allows the secret arrest of citizens and more. Also, the U.S. is to repatriate undocumented immigrants. The Big Sis is going to make the illegals legal. All part of their treacherous activity against this country. That is all some of the news at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. And we've got Aaron Dykes coming up to be breaking down what's happening on all of these fronts and more for one segment. And then Cindy Sheehan is going to be popping in. And I really like Cindy. You know, she lost her son. She gave her son to the... that was Kurt Nemo's term. You know, she gave her son to the empire, but that wasn't enough that her son died in Iraq. The IRS is now coming after her, and she's publicly said she's protesting not paying the income tax. We didn't have the income tax till 1913. It's paid to the private Federal Reserve. The average public didn't pay any income tax until the 1950s. Some paid a war tax in the 40s. They were like, well, it's World War II. Well, pay the income tax now for the general public. And it's all paid to the foreign banks. It's all paid on the national debt. All the other taxes, the gas taxes, the excise taxes, the different tariffs, that's supposed to run the small federal government. But now more, and the feds always want more. And of course, special interests sidle up, get in control of the system and do that. As we go out to break, again, I barely spent any time the last 2 hours, and I got to put gas in the tank, literally and figuratively. We're trying to grow the crew. We're trying to put out more news packages, more information. We're trying to respond. In fact, I even tried earlier. I had Darren McBreen in here in studio with me. I was asking him about some of the great news packages he did last week that I know I never played here on air. So I'm trying to have some synergy where I air the nightly news pieces on the radio show. But I've learned in a culture when it's not corporate, it's always hard to get something new done. And then once you're able to do it, because there's packages every night that are 2-3 minutes long that subscribers see, but the general public never hears or sees here on the radio. And I will take the great work of our reporters, and I will air it. But there is a factor. The globalists know in human training that once they get you set in your ways, it's almost impossible to get you out of it. We will start airing all these packages here. It will happen. In fact, during the break, I'm going to find out what some of the packages were that I tried to find out earlier, and I'm going to air them. Nothing's going to stop me unless God wants to. A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research. By the way, Rosalind Peters, a geoengineering expert who's gotten so many documents, it blows my mind, that we interviewed her on the news Friday, and I'm going to air that tomorrow here on the radio because it's a 10-minute piece, and she breaks down evidence she's gotten, evidence of them trying to artificially melt the Arctic so they can then blame humans for global warming and have it as a pretext to take our rights, but also as an added little goodie that will allow the oil companies to go in and exploit it, to melt down many of those coastal areas at least. And we know there's geoengineering going on. It's just the details are classified. So that's big. In fact, I want to get her maybe later in the week or next week on the show to break that down. That is big news. When we carry the film, What in the World Are They Spraying by G. Edward Griffin, well, he's in it, by some other great filmmakers at Infowars.com if you want to support us and get a tool to wake people up. We've also got the Noble Lie DVD, the first ever really full-length professional modern film on the false flag terror attack that was Oklahoma City that was to blame the proto-Tea Party conservative libertarian awakening against the UN. We have, back in print, we had some more printed, and we're going to get even more printed as those run out. I'm not the publisher, but I helped him get more printed. That is, of course, the author of Bloodlines, the Illuminati, Fritz Springmeier. We need to get Fritz back home when I'm back in town, maybe next week. But I'll be back tomorrow night, but I want to get him on next week to do that. Now, I'm going to turn things over to the one, the only, Aaron Dykes, who got a big round of applause in Dallas and also there in Orlando. I want to thank everybody again for coming out. It was amazing. And I'm seeing the reviews of it. People really love both events, and I will be doing more. I will be doing more. Now it's time to go up through the west and then up into the northwest and then back down through Colorado and the rest of it. I'm going to do a big trip, maybe early, midsummer, I'm not sure yet, but a big, fat, juicy, marauding trip because things are getting so bad, things are falling apart so quickly that who knows in the future if I'll even be able to drive around the country. They're already federalizing everything, checkpoints, hands down the pants at the airports, TSA on the highways. I mean, this is one of the last times to go see the info warriors as America goes dark and shuts down. We're trying to stop that, and everything we're saying is come true. But they're like, okay, they're going to secretly arrest and kill people in our building camps. You're still a kook. And they are going to release a super flu blueprint so anybody can create it and kill billions. But so what? That's not a big deal. So what, fearmonger? Aaron, you now take over the transmission. Sydney Sheehan's coming up, but you've got the floor, my friend. Briefly, though, what did you think of Orlando and Dallas? I mean, am I hyping that this was amazing? The energy was so incredible.
Oh, it's very energetic, and that's the very point I was going to make. I get way too much credit, Alex. I don't know why you always throw it to me, but yeah, people come out, and I hope those are the same people out there being activists and so many more at other spots across the country, but the enthusiasm was literally palpable. It was tangible. And that's a great thing. And, of course, we've done so much that it's obvious now what the problems are, and people just have to respond to them and wake up. It's bizarre to have, like, an Elvis deal, women especially, trying to jump over the thing at me. I mean, it's really getting crazy. Folks, this is about the info war. And I'll tell you, Aaron, why I build you and McBreen and John and the whole crew up. Because you guys are doing the research, you're seeing the same info, you've got the same passion, Rob Dew, Paul Watson, everybody. It's not about just writing articles and editing videos about the great Alex Jones, okay? It is about other leaders in this fight. Sure, I'm obnoxious. Sure, I'm so chomping at the bit to fight globalists. I'm, jumping in and ranting and raving because I'm here to build up Ron Paul. I'm here to build up Aaron Dykes. I'm here to build up G. Edward Griffin. I'm here to build up Aaron Russo. I'm bringing a lot of times old timers to bigger audiences than they've ever seen. I'm bringing people that are new to audiences that they would have never seen. I'm bringing activists on the stage that are having victories to audiences they would have never even imagined being able to reach, because this is a blessing that we've got, and I'm thankful for it. And I realize every day we're on air is an incredible blessing. Now, I'm kind of like Senna
Great movie, by the way. It's now on Netflix. True story. You know, the Formula One racer who would overdo it sometimes and be so far ahead that he'd blow an engine or wouldn't pull in to get his tires replaced and would wreck. I've got to learn and mature how to back off. But I told people in the speech, it's not arrogance. It's not bravado. It's not ego that I'm so aggressive and loud. It is anger. It is frustration. It is rage. It is focus. It is, and so I'm trying to cool off here. But the point is, that's why I'm trying to build up other people, Aaron, who are doing great jobs in their own way. And the entire crew up there is absolutely kicking butt. And I want the crew to realize that this is a mission we're on. This is a big deal. I want the listeners to understand this. We may not be here in the future. We may get shut down. Things are going dark, Aaron. This New World Order is real. This global government's real. What's happening is real. And we better use the internet and talk radio while we've still got it and fight to keep it free, but both. We better understand that this is important. It's all happening. It's real. Our worst analysis has been confirmed in spades, in triplicate, Aaron. I'm going to get out of here or I'll keep ranting. I got to go get packed or I'll never get down the road in time. We're learning a lot on this trip. Again, great job to the entire crew and the whole audience. But Aaron, I'm going to let you take it away with whatever news you want to cover. You got Cindy Sheehan coming up here. So you go ahead, my friend. And we've got a lot more coming up on the road tomorrow here for radio listeners and the Nightly News. What are you doing the Nightly News tonight, Aaron?
Yeah, that's right. We got all kinds of things coming up, including the secret media war of 2012. And what you're talking about is true, especially in the sense that it's not about any one focal point, Ron Paul, Alex Jones, whatever. It's the fact that once you begin to see in that they live metaphor kind of way, there's no turning back, Alex. And that's why they're in so much trouble. That's why you've got the press.
Aaron, I'm letting you go. Good job, folks.
Thanks,
I'll be
Alex.
listening on my iPhone, free iPhone app, and I might call in during the Sheehan stuff. God bless you.
God bless, Alex. Travel safe. But you've got the reporters talking about how their whole phony establishment is coming down, and Ron Paul's a direct threat to that. This article beginning with the quote, "See this room? 2/3 of us will be laid off when Ron Paul's president." A hot microphone picked up a reporter attacking Ron Paul recently before a Pentagon briefing began, and it's just illustrative of the fact that you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. All the king's horses, all the king's men, all the liars for this empire, all the deceivers, all the people setting up the false paradigms, all this entire system of Hobson's choices, of false choices, people, you can't go back to seeing it any other way, and that's why there's so many enthusiastic people out there. And if they will just activate and turn to their friends, their family, people who don't believe, those who are 1 foot in and 1 foot out, those who are on the fence, we're going to win this thing because we do have truth on the side, and you just can't see it any other way once you realize what a grand deception all of this is. Politics just being one slice, one sector of it. And you've seen him throwing out all the stops. It wasn't enough just to black out Ron Paul or cheat him in the election. They've got to try to sabotage everything he stands for because they know it's so much more than the electability of Ron Paul. Whatever ends up happening with the actual election cycle, there is a revolution underway of ideas, and that is what the system is most afraid of, in my view. Of course, you've got other stuff here. Warren Buffett, who's begged, quote-unquote, the system to tax billionaires and millionaires more than they have, another Hobson's choice, is out today in Bloomberg talking about how the banks were the ones victimized by excesses of ousted homeowners and how many people who foreclosed actually picked up a lot of cash, implying that they did something deceptive and exploitative. That's ridiculous because we know how much the system has set this entire thing up. Goldman Sachs, who Warren Buffett has backed publicly, just one of the companies who bet against the systems in place, who are trying to backstop all this, betting against AIG and manipulating so many other markets. And I've got to tell you, I'm not going to forget about the fact I was there in 2006, the first time I was at a Bilderberg meeting. Didn't even know totally what to make out of it, but I began studying the list and listening to what all the experts there said and what came out of the meeting. Didn't know if it was going to be true, but it came out of that meeting in 2006 that they were going to pop the housing bubble. and begin the economic crash. Nobody knew for another 2 years, well, a year and a half, till 2007, leading into 2008, that crash was indeed upon us. But look, that information proved to be accurate. So has a lot of other insider information that experts like Jim Tucker, the veteran Bilderberg sleuth, Daniel Estrin, and others have gotten out of those meetings. And now you see it here. People like Warren Buffett, again, backing Goldman Sachs, backing Bank of America, and backing the banking system in general, and telling us again that the victims, the people out of homes in this nation, are the ones to blame, when the system knowingly, fraudulently rated their loans as AAA, got them into loans they knew they couldn't pay back, just to build up this system and make money on both sides of it as it goes up and down. Just disgusting. And I know Alex has already covered the ethicist arguing to kill newborn babies and how it should be allowed to have infanticide up to the 2nd or even 3rd year, but it's just too shocking not to comment on. And this whole crew of bioethicists, what another false choice, what another grand deception of people who, you've got Julian Salvescu, who's argued that we should put lithium in the water. I know Alex talked about this too. Other bioethicists saying we should put lithium in the water. It's just another name they've spun for these eugenicists who want to sell us on the idea of killing humanity. And it's strange. Now, I want to ask Cindy Sheehan coming up not only about her own situation with the IRS coming after her for not paying taxes. She says she has openly declared she won't support the empire, and that's why she's not paying taxes. But I want to ask her about people like Michael Moore, who's built his entire image on being anti-war, about trying to rein in the same empire that we're all against, and yet he continues to just back Obama, won't say a word about Ron Paul, the only true anti-war candidate anywhere near the race, now doing shenanigans along with other top Democrats to prop up Rick Santorum and prolong the GOP vote, thinking it will benefit Obama. We'll get into that and more. Cindy Sheehan joining us on the other side, and we'll be back. I'm Aaron Dykes sitting in. Alex Jones may be calling back in as well. Stay tuned, InfoWars. We are back at Infowars.com. You just heard from Alex. He's on the road, maybe popping in again. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in throughout the rest of the broadcast. Aaron Dykes here. And we are joined now by anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan. She really became emblematic as far back as 2004 and 2005 after her son Casey was killed in action in Iraq, and really has spoken out ever since against the war. And it's very interesting to also track how, as Obama came into office, so many other anti-war activists fell off, were not to be heard from, as they quietly allowed Obama to continue these wars, but not Cindy Sheehan. So we're going to talk to her about that and so many other issues as the IRS now comes after her for not paying back taxes. Headline: New American anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan refuses to pay taxes. Kurt Nemo's headline: Fed sick IRS attack dog on anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan. Cindy Sheehan, thanks for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you, Aaron. It's nice to be on again.
It's great to talk to you.
It's nice to talk to you, too. Thank you.
So give us your version of events in terms of the latest with the IRS coming after you, and why you haven't paid taxes, because I know you've been upfront about that, and what you continue to fight for and what you've always been fighting for.
Well, when my son was killed in Iraq in 2004, I decided that my tax money had been part of the problem that contributed to the murder of my own son. And so I decided at that point that I was going to be a conscientious tax objector. And like you said, I've been very upfront about it. I've spoken about it very loudly and very clearly, and my reasons for doing so. And I've been doing this now for almost 8 years, and last Monday, I was eating dinner at a restaurant in my town with another activist from Berkeley, and this man walked in, or he walked up to our table, and at first I thought he was the manager because he had a tie on, because, you know, a lot of times people recognize me and they just want to come up and say hi, and the guy goes, "Hi, Cindy, my name is Cornell," and I was like, "Oh, hello," and he said, "I'm from Channel 10 News," and I said, "What are you doing here in Vacaville? Are you just passing through?" And he said, "No, actually, I'm here to see you," and then my mind kind of jumps like, what did I do now? You know, first of all, I'm just sitting here eating dinner, and secondly, I've been working on my radio show and my book that I just published. I haven't really been out publicly, you know, doing protests or anything lately. It's been kind of a quiet year. And he said that he was there to talk to me about the lawsuit filed by Obama's Department of Justice against me. And I had no idea what he was talking about until he showed me the lawsuit. And it was filed by the U.S. Attorney on behalf of the IRS. And I have had a couple meetings lately with the IRS, and I've told them that I'm not cooperating with them. And this lawsuit apparently, because I still haven't been served the paperwork, it's amazing to me that Channel 10 News in Sacramento got this lawsuit before I even knew about it, let alone had a copy of my own. And so they're going to compel me to go into court, and they're going to try to force me to provide my records.
It's amazing. And what kind of response are you getting from the left as you continue to preach against the wars and demonstrate as Obama continues these wars, and many people support him in spite of that fact?
Well, it's been, you know, last year, maybe the year before, we saw an increase of people on the so-called left speaking out against Obama and maybe organizing some protests and things like that. But now that it's an election year, they're starting to circle the wagons again, and I've had almost 100% support about this tax issue. Doesn't matter, you know, what political identification the person is, but, you know, there are some people calling me, you know, saying that I'm like a teabagger or I'm a Republican because I'm refusing to pay my taxes. I don't know. Republicans in general are opposed to the wars anyway, so...
Well, we'll get more into that on the other side. We've got the break coming up ahead, but that's what I'm wondering, if this has to do with the Obama re-election cycle. I'm sure the answer's there in the question. Cindy Sheehan will be back with us, and we'll take some of your calls as well. Stay tuned. Infowars.com. This is Infowars.com. Alex is barreling down the road right now, so I'm sitting in to finish off the broadcast. Our guest right now is Cindy Sheehan, and I would have to say what she practices is civil disobedience. It's an old thing basically coined by Henry David Thoreau, who said, among other things, if 1,000 men were not to pay their tax bills this year, that would not be a violent and bloody measure, as it would be to pay them and enable the state to commit violence and shed innocent blood. This, in fact, is the definition of a peaceful revolution, if any such is possible. He also said that under a government which imprisons unjustly, the true place for a just man is also in prison. He's one of the original tax protesters, and I guess it's people like Cindy Sheehan continuing in his tradition. Cindy.
Henry David Thoreau, of course, is one of my inspirations, and I studied him when I was in college, and I wish I would have paid closer attention to him back then, and then my son might still be alive today. But, you know, what is, and we have to go forward. And I was just at a protest Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, actually started Friday night at 5 minutes to midnight. They launched an ICBM test missile from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and that cost $28 million. And some of us, I think there was about 17 of us, including Daniel Ellsberg and I, who we were, you know, accused of trespassing onto the base. We wanted to stop the launch, and we were met with, you know, what do you want to call it, a squadron of MPs who arrested us, who treated me very horribly. I was bent over my back. I was bent backwards over the front of a female MP and, molested worse than I've ever been in any arrest. And then we were detained in handcuffs in their vans for a couple hours afterwards. So anytime something like this happens, anytime I witness the fact that, children were killed by drone bombs, by hellfire missiles in Pakistan or Afghanistan, or anything like that, my first thought, I think, is thank God I'm not paying for it. And I ask people questions about this. If you were given a choice to pay to drop a hellfire missile on, 36 school children in northern Waziristan, or between going to prison, which one would you take? I would hope most people would take going to prison. But what we do when we pay our taxes is we funnel it through a middleman. We funnel it through the IRS. And most of the money for our income taxes goes towards paying for these current wars, paying for the military-industrial complex, paying debt to the banks for prior wars, and debt to the banks for these wars. So basically, it's mostly going towards the military-industrial complex. And I, for one, know as a tax resistor that eventually I could end up in prison, but like Henry David Thoreau, I'd rather be there than knowing that I was like a co-defendant with my government in killing innocent people. And they may bring me to court. They want to bring me to court in the middle of April. And I want to go to court. I don't know what date April 15th is on, but I want to go to court that day. And I want to make this a movement. And this is why they're coming after me, Aaron, and this is why they come after people of prominence. Because I don't think the empire thinks they can intimidate me anymore. But what they want to do is they want to show other people what could happen to you if you decide to go the route that Cindy Sheehan goes, or that the National War Tax Resisting Coordinating Committee has done. All the prominent people who, are not afraid of them, who are not afraid to take stands like this, are the ones that they go after. And they could have gone after me during the Bush administration. I feel it is very significant that Obama's administration is persecuting me.
Well, that's the point. I don't think there was anything good about the Bush administration, but I think they realized that taking you down then through your protesting the taxes would only lend credence to your movement, would only build you up at a time when that national spotlight was on you. You were very iconic of the entire anti-war movement, but all that has somehow become silent under Obama. You've continued to protest, but so many others have stopped protesting against the war, haven't shown up to these rallies, haven't had their voices heard. I mean, what do you make of that? It's got to be a political retribution as Obama launches into his re-election cycle.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that Obama was, put in place by what I call the robber class, what, the Occupy movement calls the 1%, to further the agenda of the 1% or the robber class, and to do it in a way where there's very little opposition. Not only is there no opposition, but many of these people who would have been screaming the loudest if Bush or McCain had done these things are not screaming. They're supporting what he's doing. So, to me, it's scandalous and it's pitiful and pathetic that people care more about partisan politics than they do about, actual human beings. I wrote an article not too long ago saying it would probably be better for a Republican to be elected in 2012, because then at least these progressives would care about innocent people again. Or they would pretend to care about innocent people for political gain.
Yeah, and I want to bring up the point of Michael Moore, because he was very forward on being anti-war for years in the Bush administration. Then Obama came in. We saw all the signs that he was going to have the same advisors, that he was going to continue these wars, that he was going to keep contractors, change the names of what active duty troops were as he kept them in Iraq and Afghanistan, expanding to all these other countries. I believe it's still 9 war fronts we're on. And here he is today, again, making a splash in the news with his political shenanigans, saying he wants to make mischief under Operation hilarity and back Santorum, thinking it's going to discredit the GOP race so Obama can get reelected. Well, you don't have to agree with Ron Paul if you're on the left on economic issues or a lot of things, but there's no doubting he's the only real anti-war candidate in the race, and I don't understand how Michael Moore can publicly say this and keep his supporters.
Well, because I think that it's all this paradigm, you know, that these people were actually anti-Bush, they weren't anti-war, and so of course, you know, Michael Moore has done a lot of good things, and you know, he's not the only person in that side of the fence that is doing things like this. And like I said, I think it's pathetic, and I think it's pitiful, and I think it shows a lack of integrity to base your principles on a political party. And, you know, we do on the left. We have anti-war choices, too, and, you know, I think they have as much of a chance of being elected as Ron Paul. But, you know, if you're on the right and you're anti-war, then you should support Ron Paul. If you're on the left and you're anti-war, you can support the Green Party or Rocky Anderson of the Justice Party, or, you know, who knows if some other anti-war person on the left is going to rise up. But we know for a fact that somebody like, you know, let's talk about Dennis Kucinich. How come Dennis Kucinich runs as an anti-war Democrat, you know, for the last 2 times, but, you know, he won't primary Obama now, even though, like you say, Obama is prosecuting at least 9 different fronts of war right now, the U.S. war of terror. How come somebody like Dennis Kucinich isn't standing up and saying that, you know, the Democratic Party needs an anti-war voice?
Yeah, and his silence has definitely been notable. I would assume there's probably been pressure behind the scenes. I know he did speak out on the Libyan front of the war and received a lot of flack from it. I know from inside the Bilderberg circle, they were saying that damn Kucinich is making this hard for us.
I interviewed him for my show, Cindy Sheehan Soapbox, and he said that that what Obama did in Libya was an impeachable offense. And I said, well, okay, Dennis, if, you know, why aren't you running for president? He said, well, I think someone should, but I'm not going to. So I don't know. It seems like somebody who's already run for president 2 times in a row and has a base could be more of a challenger than, you know, somebody just coming from nowhere to challenge Obama as a Democrat.
Okay, we've got some callers waiting even before I gave out the number, but if you want to join us, it is 1-800-259-9231. Let's see what Matthew in Tennessee brings to the table. Are you there, Matthew?
I'm here.
Hi.
Mr. Sheehan, I would like you to do a small piece of investigation for me. I want you to look at pictures of Karl Marx. He will put his right hand in his jacket to conceal it. This is a sign of Masonic allegiance. I want you to consider, Mr. Sheehan, that perhaps the most effective thing to do is not to avoid taxes, but to ask the Marine Corps of the United States of America to not turn their weapons on American citizens, but rather turn their weapons on the people who give them the order to do so. Thank you very much.
Cindy, if you want to respond to that.
Well, you know, I think that I don't like to talk about weapons being turned on anybody, but I think that certainly the military who follows orders, even illegal and immoral orders, are part of the problem. And, you know, talk about Obama persecuting me. Obama's persecuting Bradley Manning, who took that he took that seriously, that, you know, soldiers are not required to follow illegal orders. And look where he is. You know, he was in Quantico for a year and a half being tortured, and now he's on trial literally for his life. You know, so of course I think that the troops that follow these illegal and immoral orders are part of the problem.
Well, it's kind of an escalation of evil as well. First, there's a justification that it's okay to kill civilians, but it's not just in the military component. We've seen our rights stripped away under the TSA, but now everyone's reorienting the mission to somehow the homeland people are the threat. And it's just scary what they're doing. And they are talking about coming after Americans. They're trying to convince the military people that's somehow acceptable. I know a lot of them aren't going to go along with it. I hope that proves to be the case. Let's see what John in North Carolina brings to the table. John, are you there?
Yeah, hello, Cindy Sheehan. Thank you very much for everything you do, and I'm so sorry for your loss, but you are a true American patriot. And I'm glad that you pointed out that most of the people that were backing you weren't really backing the anti-war effort, but they were just against Bush. And might I say that I thoroughly agree with the grassroots movements that you've made, and there's a grassroots movement around right now that might help to bring out the truth about things. And one of those affronts to freedom that happened recently was all the voter fraud that went in on the Maine GOP and the caucuses. And if I may, I'd like to read a very quick opening to this. Anyway, I'll just do it. The blatant voter fraud committed by the Maine GOP in the 2012 caucus is an affront to the freedom of the American people. Their manipulation of the true results and disingenuous response of correcting their mistakes on March 10th, 4 days after Super Tuesday, represents obvious censorship and will not be tolerated. Therefore, we are calling for a boycott of all things Maine unless the Maine GOP reports the true and full results of the caucus before March 6, 2012. This correction must be reported with the same fanfare and national exposure as the original fraudulent caucus results were presented to the nation. As Maine businesses profit from their association with the state of Maine, their products and services will be boycotted until this travesty of justice is rectified. Due to the time constraints, the boycott will begin with the following Maine associated businesses, however, will not be limited to LL Bean Incorporated, Poland Springs Water, Division of Nestle Waters North America, McCain Foods USA, Kennebunk Technologies. Americans who are against voter fraud and censorship should contact these companies, along with Governor LePage, GOP leader Charlie Webster, Maine Tourism Bureau Frank McGinty, and the Maine Chamber of Commerce. Contact information and specifics of the fraud can be found by searching for Boycott Maine for Voter Fraud and Censorship on YouTube. That's Boycott Maine for Voter Fraud and Censorship on YouTube. I think we can really make a dent with this.
Well, there's been undeniable voter fraud in Maine as well as in Nevada, Iowa. They threw out the official results as well, but it's also a delegates race. Cindy Sheehan, isn't it time to tear down the false veil of left and right and really look at people who are trying to fix the system itself?
Well, that's one of the reasons that I think that a tax revolt would be far more effective than getting, sucked into the cesspool of federal electoral politics because, voter fraud is not the exception. It's not a surprise. It's the rule. It's been happening ever since voting has started, but now it's more sophisticated. There's not only voter fraud, there's manipulation, there's propaganda, there's Madison Avenue selling us the candidate. So, I really think that instead of being, support a candidate, vote for a candidate, but I think we should really be concentrating on, solutions outside of the establishment, not inside of the establishment, because guess what? The establishment, they own the voting machines, they count the votes, they're the ones that control the whole process. So why are we allowing ourselves to get sucked into it? What we need to do is think of creative ways to oppose the establishment, not want to be part of the establishment.
Well, we can have that conversation as long as it's not about throwing out the Constitution and Bill of Rights, because I don't know if I'm going to agree with all of your solutions. Let's get one more call here.
I never said to throw out the Constitution or Bill of Rights. What has happened is that it essentially is meaningless to the robber class. They have already thrown those things out. So they only apply to us then. There's two systems of justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. So, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights has essentially been rendered meaningless by the establishment. so we need to reclaim our rights. We don't have to have our rights written on a piece of paper to know that we have our rights, you know, but people, excuse me, they allow themselves to be sucked into all this propaganda and all this establishment hoo-ha when, you know, we have solutions that are based right in our own communities.
Well, you've got a point there. Certainly our rights are God-given, and we need some decentralized answers. Let's hear from Lyndon in Texas before we go to break, and we'll be back in the last segment.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, how you doing, Aaron? I think you're a good host. I like the calmness about you, and I think Alex Jones is an angel. He was sent to Earth to save lives, and I like what he's doing. I like the Tang and Tangerine. I'm going to order that diet plan. And to Cindy Sheehan, your son, he lost his life in vain because if they would have told him they were going to sign an NDAA, I don't think he would have went to the army and fought in Iraq. And I think it's a shame that our soldiers are dying for Obama just to take over our
I agree. We're going back to the break. We'll come back to you. Why has there been so much silence on NDAA? Everyone was outraged about the Patriot Act. Now somehow it's okay. It's more than just the wars. We got a big problem here. We'll be back. We're back at Infowars.com. In the last segment, Cindy Sheehan is our guest, but right now we're going to go back to Lyndon in Texas. You were making a point about the NDAA.
Yeah, the NDAA to me is really unnecessary. Right there, it shows Obama's turning his back on America. American people should be outraged, and they should get with all the people that's going against the NDAA because these soldiers are dying, losing their lives. They didn't join the army and say, okay, take all our freedoms. They joined for our freedom. So it's a double-edged sword. And I disagree that one guy said, don't stop paying taxes. Cindy Sheehan is right. Everybody should stop paying taxes. Tell everyone in your family, do not join the military until we get a legitimate government to support. Then you support them. But if you're supporting this government, you're not supporting America. You're supporting an illegitimate group of people that's trying to put nuclear war on us. Right now, they hang around Iran trying to kill us. What's the sense of nuclear war and all our children going to die? You might as well be an adult and fight the system in every way you can.
And they beat us over the head with supporting the troops and all the ribbons, but look how they really support the troops when they have mental problems or anything else or just stressed out about fighting illegal wars. They come and SWAT team them or take their guns or try to lock them up. Cindy Sheehan, your comments on what the caller was talking about.
Well, I agree with him about everything he just said. And Chris Hedges, war correspondent, journalist now, has actually trying to file a lawsuit against Barack Obama and Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, about the NDAA to declare it illegal and unconstitutional. So there are people who do still have integrity, who are still working against the government, no matter who's in charge.
It's still just amazing to me that people in general are not out in the streets against the NDAA, bringing that war home to us after all these illegal wars. Let's hear from John in Ohio.
We agree. This character, I think, was put in Obama, this CIA operative, by the largest elements of the Wall Street and the military-industrial complex, because they knew that if they had an Uncle Tom president in the White House, he could shut up the few anti-war Democrats, and most people are sheep. If they don't have somebody who tells them it's permissible to take a position against these wars that Obama is doubling, his police state measures that he's doubling, as the previous caller said, leading us into wars, they become sheep and they say, well, who am I with my little mind, my little weak mind, if all of these big people? And I think that people are going to have to begin to not to take this position that if we attack him, the Republicans will win. If you attack him from the left for his warmongering, his fascist police state, his stooging for Wall Street and the military-industrial complex, you automatically discredit the Republicans. And I think if we begin to realize that the Republicans are giving him actually fake progressive cover by attacking him falsely as a socialist, he's the exact opposite. Everything he's done has been to enhance the power of the anti-socialist, biggest monopolies, bankers, warmongers in the world in world history. And I think that the Republicans are actually giving him cover, and it's a kind of a kabuki fake fight theater that he loves, because it gives him an opportunity to get on television and pretend to be a populist.
Cindy, we got 30 seconds if you want to respond to that in closing, and thank you for joining us.
Well, I agree with everything the caller just said, and your listeners can get more information about me and my protest at cindysheehansoapbox.com.
And we hope people will join those efforts and say no to these illegal wars and the persecution of those fighting against them. Infowars.com.